What is up, my Trek Wars fans and family and friends? So I was doing this thing. I was just kind of curious. I was looking at some of my stats that I have with my different ships and my formulas. And so I'm going to make a video about it in probably the next week or two, showing you guys. But I just kind of like wanted to talk about it and get you guys all hyped up for it. So I was looking at I have this formula, and it's really, really simple, and it looks at the power per beam, the volley, and then it gives you the overall value of that weapon. So for an example, a Type 10 phaser, each shot is worth 65,000, and then it can do like 14 shots, something like that, right? And so I'm looking at that, and then I have the exact same thing with like torpedo technology. And so what I've noticed about some of the different races and their weapons is that, and some of the stuff that you see is kind of unusual. Like, for an example, I just kind of, in my head, I kind of have this idea that Cardassians are, I don't know, on the bottom of the barrel in technology and stuff. And then when I look at the formulas, I'm like, that's not exactly true. And so I'll give you an example. So, like, the Cardassians can produce a heavy spire wave disruptor cannon, which is equivalent to the power of a Type X phaser, right? So 65,000. But the Enterprise can shoot that weapon 14 times. The Cardassians, the most you ever see is, I believe it's 9. So it's like significantly weaker when it comes to the ratio, but it's around the same. It is the same power, right? And then the Cardassians, they have one of those weapons on one of their ships, and then the Enterprise has 14. So there's obviously a power issue there. And then you look at Cardassian torpedo technology. And we see them use single-shot torpedoes, and those single-shot torpedoes are hitting for about the same power as a ship in Kirk's era. So they're pretty crappy. They're also at like the 65,000 range, right, point scale. And then you look at a modern torpedo from the Enterprise. That thing can shoot 10 of them, and each one of those is worth 171,000. And then they can shoot 10, so you gotta times that by 10. So it's a pretty astronomically high number, right? It's doing a lot of damage. But so I kind of was like, Cardassians are kind of shitty, right? Well, then I started looking at the stuff that takes place in DS9, right? And I'm looking at the orbital defense platform weapons, and those things are hitting. Like a torpedo that's being shot from one of those orbital defense platforms is hitting for 390,000 points of damage, which gives you an idea. If you guys have ever seen any of my videos, a quantum torpedo is 325,000 points of damage. So it's hitting harder than a quantum torpedo. And then to make it even weirder, at the very end of the Dominion War, we're talking the very, very end, the Galors, they are going from a blast of 65,000, right? Which is, definitely a standard to high-end weapon in Star Trek, right? It ends up hitting for 650,000, right? Which is just absolutely insane. To give you an idea of how incredibly powerful that is, when I look at those formulas, like the Federation Type 11 phaser seen on DS9, which are phaser arrays that are only seen on space stations, right? Because they take so much power. Those weapons are in the 600 range, right? And the only other ship that shoots a beam that's in the 600 range is the Klingon capital ship of Gowron, the Nigvar, right? The Nigvar's planet or anti-planet, but anti-starship cannons on the bottom of the ship are hitting for 975 or something like that, in the 900 range, right? So the little tiny cruiser, the Galor cruiser, right, from the crappy Cardassians, is hitting you with a weapon that would be seen only on space stations. And so it's like kind of like weird how Cardassians are like basically using crap, or they're using the best shit ever, and there's no in between. I mean, the reasoning honestly for it is all their really, really, really high stats are coming from the Cardassian weapon platforms, and those are exactly that. You know, they are a planetary weapon platform, and we expect them to be hitting really, really heavy and hard, right? What I don't expect is a crappy Galor to be having, you know, a heavy spiral wave cannon hitting for 650,000. And I'm like looking at that, I'm like, how in the world do they go from 65 to 650,000? Now, I try to speculate, like how in the world did that happen, right? Like, okay, so we know that at the beginning of the war, Cardassians had a heavy spiral wave disruptor, 65,000. Then we have, you know, the fight, the first encounter with the Federation, and a big, you know, battle with the Dominion and the Cardassians, and we see the Cardassians are hitting for like 167,000 something, right? So you can see they had a huge increase with their spiral wave disruptor cannon, which is expected because now they're being augmented with Dominion technology, right? So I'm okay with that. I can see how that could happen, because that's only slightly below a Romulan disruptor, right? A Romulan disruptor, when I was looking at the formula, I can't remember exactly what it is. I think it's 175 or something like that. And then that thing is hitting just slightly below that. So it makes sense in universe. I can see that, right? And then I'm like, okay, but I'm like, I don't know. This the 650,000. So I think, okay, so we know that we've seen Cardassian weapons hit for 390,000, right? And that's what their you know, little weapon platforms are doing. And then, you know, that's Kintaka. That shit gets blown up, you know, whatever. And then, you know, towards the end of the war, and I was thinking, okay, what could they have done to make this happen? And the only thing I could think of is the Galors that they had left because of desperation and resources, that they were actually taking, they made a more advanced version of their planetary defense platform, like cannon, like heavy. I don't really know what that weapon actually is called, but I think I would call it a heavy spiral wave cannon. I know that's what the original Galor weapon is, but what the planetary defense thing is, I don't really know. But what I'm getting at is, I wonder if they took like a more advanced version of the Cardassian heavy spiral wave disruptor cannon seen on the weapon platforms, made a newer generation, I guess, with Dominion technology, and then implanted that into the Galor's navigational deflector, right? Because we know that the Enterprise had taken its navigational deflector against the Borg, and then and then you made a huge beam out of it. I wonder if the Cardassians were able to master that technology because of the Dominion, and were able to augment this heavy spiral wave disruptor cannon, which is designed for planetary defense, put it onto a Galor, and we're running it somehow through the navigational deflector. So it's just one of those things that I'm looking at. I just thought it was really interesting, and I just kind of thought, what do you guys think? What do you think about the Cardassian weapons and how they go from being crap to like the best?